Alright, this time at the Quick Speed Shop, I'm working back on the Rusty Junk YJ. These things are a nightmare of vacuum lines under the hood. Some of them have already been disconnected, some are just hanging every which way. I'm going to get rid of most of them, get rid of the front axle disconnect, and make this thing a lot more reliable for the trail. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. Right here under the hood we got our old standby 4.2 liter 258 straight six that American Motors has had since like 1967 or so. Started out as I think 199, 232, then went to 258. This 1990 I believe is the last year for it in the Wrangler. I think in 91 they went to the fuel injected 4 liter. But this is a 4.2 liter. It's carb rated, factory aluminum valve cover. This Jeep has been upgraded to a Motorcraft 2-barrel carb swap here, so we've got a Motorcraft 2-barrel off like any kind of 70s or 80s 2-barrel Ford application. Originally this would have had a BBD 2-barrel carburetor that was electronically controlled. The plug for that is back here. It would have been plugged in. There was an electric stepper motor on the back of the original carburetor. This is a much better upgrade, gets rid of all that garbage and makes it run better. It's got the electric choke here, single fuel line in the front, but this is hooked up and ready to rock and roll. But there is a massive vacuum lines hanging out here. I've got some hanging up here just loose on this bar over here. I think I got one hanging, where is it? I got some capped off here, got other ones just hanging out, just cut off right here, just wide open, and got a bunch running down to the front axle. We're going to get rid of all that and make this thing a lot better. So I'm just going to jump right into it, start over here at the carburetor. What I have is some PVC lines. One big line goes right to the back of the carburetor. That appears to be hooked up, and then it tees off and it goes down to a evaporative canister over here under the fender well. That is also hooked up right now at the time. But if I come off that evaporative canister, which should be getting vacuum through it, I've got a line coming up the back of the carburetor here, and it's picking up the vent on the front of the carburetor where the fuel bowl vent is, so you want that going through the canister. But I've got a T and I've got an open line here, so it's pulling atmospheric air right from the air there, so it's going to be making a little bit of a vacuum leak. I'm simply going to cut the line off and plug it with a screw. Actually, this has got, you see how bad these things get? Check that out, it's all dry rotted. Now they make plastic plugs you can put in vacuum lines. I found that if you run a screw down in it, a machine screw, it's fine. So I take the screw and I just twist it down the line a ways. That'll create a good plug for this back line. Pull that out right here. Right here, this line. So it looks like it was touching the exhaust manifold. It just got the edge of it a little bit. But it's got this T, and then it's got a really dry rotted elbow on here. So I can pull this off, this connector, get rid of this T, and make this go straight into the vacuum port of the carburetor. Bam. Once again, I'll just remove all this. See how dry rotted that is there. Looks like we got a plug T here. And then this is going over here. Into a vacuum ball that's mounted on the fender, and then that comes off and it goes to the distributor. Now I don't believe you want to be running the distributor off a vacuum ball, because it would have, with the reservoir, it would have vacuum all the time and it wouldn't allow the distributor vacuum advance to change the engine. I believe you want to have it hooked up to ported vacuum, which should be this port over here on the carburetor, which would be above the throttle plates. That'd be ported vacuum. I believe that's what you want the distributor hooked to. That's how it is hooked up on my AMC Eagle wagon down in the back building. So I want to make a line off of here to come over here. I'm going to tie this right in the ported vacuum right off the bat. I might have to reset the timing if they've got the distributor tied in with this thing running vacuum to it all the time. I'll have to set the timing again after that, but I want to unplug that, the vacuum ball will probably end up getting eliminated because we're not going to have any vacuum over here running these switches or whatever. We're going to need a reservoir of vacuum. So all this will probably get eliminated. Well, so this is straight manifold vacuum right to that ball, shifting the axle and pulling the distributor. So I'm going to unhook the distributor end first. I should be able to reach right there. I think I'm just going to pull this off right now, right off the carburetor. I'm going to go right up and over, right through here. Okay, now I've got a ported vacuum line run right to the distributor. I'm going to pull this out of the manifold hose for now, or pull this off. There we go. Pull that out. On the intake manifold here, there's a vacuum switch, and that uses engine temperature to run a switch to pull vacuum on things at different times. So I don't know if this is hooked up correctly or not. Oh, I've got an open line here. Where did that go? And to be honest with you, I don't believe I need this ported vacuum. I'm going to unplug the EGR valve, which is probably set up anyways. I'm running this Jeep off-road, so I don't need the EGR valve hooked up. So now I've just got the vacuum line coming over this canister. This line is disconnected, so all that was doing was switching EGR and that vacuum line. So I'm going to pull off the vacuum source here, off the switch. Get off there. And I think I can just hook this back up to manifold pressure, and that will give me some suction on the vacuum canister, just to suck the gasoline vapors out of the carburetor and to suck the fumes out of the gas tank. Which this might be the four-wheel drive vacuum switch, maybe, which I'm not sure if it is or not, but we're gonna lose that. You know, I've actually got another line. What is this? Oh, this is part of the thing. This might be a vent that's just up here hanging for the system. So we'll liberate that. It's got a check valve on it down here. But it's also going to the transfer case, it looks like. And you also notice that there's these emissions tubes here, which used to have vacuum. There's vacuum switches on them. Here, these are hanging down. These used to go back to the original air cleaner, and they've just gone ahead and they hose clamped them together with a piece of rubber hose. The one comes off the driver's side of the manifold downpipe, and the other one comes off the catalytic converter. But obviously these aren't doing anything. They're air injection tubes, and they're not hooked up anymore to anything. So I'm going to cut these off and eliminate these as well. Get these out of here. Alright, body lift to the rescue here. If you see back there, you see that switch with the vacuum lines coming to it, and you see the transfer case lever and the rod that goes up inside the Jeep. That is the vacuum switch that when you engage the transfer case into four-wheel drive, it sends vacuum to the front axle disconnect to slide the collar over and engage the front axle. And over there on the front axle, you'll see the front axle disconnect. That is a vacuum motor that pulls in and out. There's a shift fork which moves the collar back and forth on the axle. We'll disassemble that in a minute, and I'll show you how we lock that into four-wheel drive, or lock it into engagement permanently. So we'll unhook that, and then we can pull all those vacuum lines out of there. Okay, I got the lines all loose. Bring them up here. Right now I can see the end that was plugged into the transmission, or the transfer case, I'm sorry. Now this just goes down to the front axle. Here's the other end of it. It's your axle end there. Alright, I just happen to have a vacuum front axle disconnect. See, how does it go like this? To show you what happens. So what you got is the vacuum shift motor. This fork is on a shaft. You got your vacuum shift motor here, and when you pull in vacuum and shift that transfer case, it makes the vacuum switch go, or it pulls vacuum on this, and depending on where it is, it'll slide this collar, which has a splined collar. There's two axle shafts, stub shafts right close together, so it simply slides a collar off and slides the collar on and locks the two axles together. I get some gear oil coming out of this thing when we pull it out of here. So I'll put the pan underneath it. Yep, got a little bit of gear oil. There we go. Alright, with the shift fork pulled off, you can see what I'm talking about here. You got this collar. Right now it's in four-wheel drive. It's engaged because when I slide this over here, you'll see this space. This is the driver's side axle shaft and the passenger side. And this, when it's in two-wheel drive, it's over here. So this shaft is separate from the other shaft, and then when you slide it in, it goes kirk, and it goes like that and engages. Then you've got four-wheel drive engaged. Alright, so what I ended up doing is I took a piece of rubber hose here and I stuck it on the shaft for a little spacer to keep this over, and then I put a hose clamp right on the fork shift, or the shift fork. So that is locked right over there. And just let me slide this over. So this should go kirk right back on here, like factory, just like that. Where does it go? Perfect. So now I can just throw the bolts right back up in here, and we've got positive four-wheel drive action right on the front axle. Bam. Alright, so I got all the vacuum lines all redone now here, and I went and I played around the plug wires. I untangled them all. They're a jumbled mess. This has got like a, I guess they went to like a Ford style, more like HEI style cap on this with the terminals sticking up. It's different than the earlier 4.2 liters, which had a plug wire that stuck in, and these wires seem to be about 100 feet long, but I got them all kind of loomed out of the way. Let's fire it up and see how it runs. It should run. Before it had a bunch of missing and idle and it wanted to stall because of the vacuum leaks. It should run a lot better now. So let's hit it and see what she sounds like. Bam! Try to set the idle about 700, 750. There's two mixture screws on the bottom of here. I'm going to crank them in until it starts to stall, and then back it out about a turn. Where are they? There's one. That sounds pretty good. It seems to have a miss once in a while at idle, but when I pulled the skirper cap off, the contacts are a little dirty, and I'm not sure how new the plugs are and stuff, but I'm also going to check the timing of the timing light and see where that's at. But it seems to run pretty decent now. It ran like garbage before, and actually the gas is like 2 years old, so that little bit of fluttering at idle could be the old gas too. But it seems to run pretty strong now. Got that familiar AMC6 sound to it. Bam, that's fantastic. This thing runs 100% better than it did before. Got rid of all that miscellaneous vacuum nonsense on here. I was right. This was the vacuum vacuum switch for the four-wheel drive, because the light is not lit up on the dash now. But that doesn't matter. So the front axle is locked in permanently now. That'll be good. Won't have to get any trouble on the trail. Everything else under the hood looks good here. I'm actually going to take the gas tank out and relocate. I've got a homemade tank I made for one of my hot rods. It's about 10 gallons. It's a rectangle. I'm going to mount that behind the seats inside the Jeep, and since this has a single fuel line now with a Motorcraft carburetor, I can use that tank, plumb it in, and use that so all the tank and the skid plate in the back will be all eliminated. That's the lowest point in the back pretty much, so it'll get a ton of rear clearance. Won't have to worry about ripping the tank out wheeling. And I don't need the great big factory tank in here. This thing's not going to go more than like a couple miles at a time, so a small tank, I could throw a few gallons of gas in, it'll be more than plenty. But I'm super happy I got this thing all dialed in. It was running like garbage every time I had to move it around. And that was due to those like 2 or 3 empty open vacuum lines and a whole bunch of cracked vacuum lines. So now I got all new rubber. The lines that I kept, I put new rubber on, except for the one for the distributor, which seemed to be in good shape. Yeah, so she's pretty much all buttoned up under the hood. It looks like I got a new alternator and probably a thermostat and stuff on this, so somebody was working on it right before they retired it. So it should run good for trail riding. These things, you can't beat them. The odometer is only showing 77,000 miles on here, so that's good. That's the lowest mileage 258 it got. So if this thing falls apart, I'm definitely yanking this motor out and putting it in something else. That's what you got to do with the AMC motors. Get rid of the vacuum garbage, and they run 100% better, and they run awesome, and you can't stop them. So that's it for today, I guess, on the Project Rusty Junk YJ. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts, tell your friends, and we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop, working on Rusty Junk Jeeps, hot rods, whatever else I got going on in the shop.